one. Our analysts are in. It's Mr. C and AB Bozimo. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Great to be here. Happy post-AFCON day to everybody. Let's get back to the reality of Nigeria.
Good morning, Zibby. Good morning, Omas. Good morning, AB. Good morning, Lagos. Extension.
Okay, so let's start off with this headline coming in via Punch. Nigeria to become food exporter through mechanized farming, and this is according to President Tinubu.
Okay, thank you, Zibby. So we get another recurring episode of what we intend to do or what we're looking for to do. We've been told that Nigeria intends to become self-sufficient in food production and become a net exporter of agricultural products through what has been described as aggressive mechanization. Now, where did this conversation take place? A global Islamic leader visited the president, and during that visit, the president was explaining to him what his plans were. Now, he says that he informed him that it was important Nigeria became a net exporter of food products, and Nigeria becomes self-sufficient. Now, this has been a recurring story of his administration. Everything about what they intend to do or what they are looking forward to do. It's 9 months in, we haven't seen anything they've actually done. And it's really traumatic because women who conceived in May last year have started delivering. Some others are set to deliver. For how long will we be exposed to stories of we're going to do this, we're going to do that? Now, when you go further, he says that they're going to expand farmland. I'm not aware land in Nigeria has increased. And land in each state is held in trust by the government on behalf of the residents of that state according to the provisions of the Land Use Act. Now, you also have internally displaced communities of indigenous farmers who have been displaced by criminal elements, sometimes taking the form of Fulani herdsmen. We're still dealing with the aftershock, the consequences of such actions, wherein farmland now remains fallow because the people who have the expertise and the age-long experience of using those farmlands have been displaced from the farmlands, and the criminal elements who displaced them have no intention or inclination to farm. Now, the president also did say he's planning to bring in thousands of tractors. Are you now providing another sort of subsidy? Because if you're bringing them in, that means the government is expending money. Now, where's this money coming from? That's one. Two, if you're not going to extend a subsidy, who are the farmers who have the capacity or capital to buy these tractors? He then further spoke about low interest loans to farmers. Now, this is a real mystery here. You intend to become self-reliant, you intend to increase your food security, yet you cannot give grants to the farmers, rather you give loans. Then to the traders who are running private enterprises that benefit only themselves, you're giving grants. It has to make sense. Everything has to matter. If you have a goal and a target, what is the plan? He now says, very soon Nigeria will become a net exporter of food. No timelines, nothing to measure progress against declaration. And again, this is extremely sad. He then further spoke about the health sector, where he intends to increase the number of health professionals working in Nigeria and increase the number of hospitals, amongst other things. The truth of the matter is this: the health professionals here know where the grass is green. So attempts by like what the Nursing Council of Nigeria is intending to do, saying you must practice for 2 years before they will validate your degree or your license elsewhere, will not fly. You cannot force people to stay in a country where there's little of that. It's not going to work. So again, I'm not sure how we're going to become a net exporter of food, given the fact that we have irrigation issues we haven't sorted out, we have security issues sorted out, we have storage issues we haven't sorted out. So it's a real mystery how we're going to get to El Dorado according to the president. And in the absence of timelines or an estimated launch date, as far as I'm concerned, it's hot smoke. He has to give details. We can't continue running on projections, beliefs, and assumptions. There must be something we can tie this administration to.
All right, I've got a message coming through, and this is from JP, and he says the president needs to stop making lofty statements without measurable timelines and depth. Security is bad and has stopped farmers from going to their farms.
And with that, we're over now to AB. AB, this story, there's a connection between this Mr. C's story and yours. So we'd just like you to use that as a launch pad into this next story. Federal government urged to engage North more in agriculture to tackle poverty and insecurity.
Yes. First of all, this was a call made at a conference titled Tackling Poverty in Northern Nigeria. The first step to actually addressing a problem is acknowledging and recognizing that the problem exists. All the statistics have showed, unfortunately, that within the Nigerian space, poverty walks on two legs in the north. It's all over the country, definitely, but it is particularly crippling in the north. When you add that to the insecurity and all that, you know that the north, which is potentially heaven on earth, is certainly being underserved. But I look at the solutions that they were beginning to, roll out, and I'm afraid they seem to still look outward that the FG should engage North. No, the people who are affected, I should note, in every single part of Nigeria, not just in North, should hold up a mirror in front of themselves. That mirror should encompass those that they call their representatives. It doesn't matter what's happening elsewhere in the country. What are you and those who purport to represent you doing to better your lot? Yes, of course, the FG has a responsibility, especially in the area of security and all that, because you can't address agriculture, solid minerals, and all that if you don't tackle insecurity. And insecurity is under the FG. States don't have local police forces or anything. The best they can do is attach vigilantes to people. So they're having this conversation, talking about poverty, talking about how to address and increase the amount of arable land. Again, is it in all sincerity the president or the presidency that is supposed to come to a specific state, identify the arable land? Like Mr. C said, all land is held by the governors in trust for the people. So the people who have a direct handle and responsibility on how to identify and improve arable land are at best the state governors. And if by any chance the federal level is working at cross purposes with the state governor, the governor can readily get the wind of the people behind him by pointing out that kind of contrast. So, I'm looking at them, they're talking about creating increased productivity. Listen, it's nice to have these lofty goals, but I want to hear people who sit down and say, on this street, on this 10-acre piece, in this particular local government, we shall, using the following 1, 2, 3 steps, update our farming technology, increase our arable land, increase our irrigation. It's not, listen, we must come subnational now, because in my humble opinion, based on the example of the speech that was just analyzed in the earlier story, nothing but wishy-washy wannabe promises are expected from the federal government. There is nothing you can actually hold on to, put your thumb on and say, this shall be done in such and such a time. Forget the FG. Face your state governors, your local government, and your ward chairman. Identify who is in charge of your ward, each person today, and engage them, not hostilely, cordially, and purposefully.
So I just want to chip in something. I like what AD has said, engage them. Now the challenge is how many of them actually stay when they're supposed to be. Half of the time they're elsewhere. So it's not a lack of willingness on the part of citizens to engage them. They are nowhere to be found. That is the sad reality we have in Nigeria today. How many governors reside in their states? Can be found for 3 weeks out of 4 weeks inside their states. I can tell you for free, less than 5.
All right, let us know your thoughts. The WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. You can also tweet at Smooth981 or post a comment on our live stream at Smooth981. It's up on YouTube. Moving on to the headline coming from Punch. Now, if you've at any point crossed a major highway, well, you might want to stop. The Lagos State government has described the crossing of major highways by pedestrians as an offense, and they've also added that any defaulter caught will be prosecuted. Mr. C?
Okay, thank you. So this is actually not a new offense. It's been in the statute books for the longest time possible. And it's a real mystery as to why Lagos State has suddenly woken up and decided to prosecute. So what this will really turn to is food for the boys. And who are the boys? Members of the Kai Brigade. Because they will then be looking for how to line up their pockets instead of doing the proper thing. Now, my concern is the prisons are already overpopulated. We're stretched. There's congestion in our prisons. Now, where you prosecute offenders and you impose a fine and they cannot pay, they go to prison. Where? You overcrowded prisons already. I have a better solution. And the lessons will be enduring. Have them do jumping jacks by the side of the ridge, wherever you get them, for like 45 minutes. Then let them give you 150 press-ups. I assure you, they do that, they will never cross the highway again.
Mr. C, you are the lawyer. The next thing,
No,
human rights will
no.
begin.
Incorporate it into the law.
Let it not be said, Mr. C is
no.
advocating the encroachment on human rights and the humanization of citizens.
No, you didn't let me finish.
Okay,
this,
just want to
this should be the law should be amended. Look, let's stop.
The law should be amended for fiscal exercise as punishment. Some people would love that, though.
You think? Amend the law, because this business of fines and or jail term, the economy right now is not smiling. How many people will be? The fine is 50,000 now. Let's not deceive ourselves. The people who cross the highways will not have cars. That is why they're crossing the highways. They're trying to get to the available means of transportation, which more often than not, public transportation or private cars serving public transport needs. So amend the law, let them do some physical exercise, some physical workouts, and then let them pay a fraction of that 50,000 now. I assure you sanity will return to our highways.
Just curious about this, though. What do you think about those pedestrian bridges? Because I've seen those bridges, particularly the one or two on the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway, and they look like they require an extraordinary amount of effort to actually go up. And at night, it's poorly lit. There are no lights on there. Shouldn't the government in some way be looking to make those bridges perhaps safer for people, and then they can use them, and perhaps increase the number as well?
Perfect. So increase the lighting, try and increase security. But remember, the Nigeria Police Force is overstretched. We don't have sufficient bodies inside the Nigeria Police Force. But we must remember something, and it's sad to say this, the average Nigerian will always seek the most convenient route to go. The average Nigerian is more prone to taking the indisciplined route to achieving his aims and goals, rather than walk around and cross the pedestrian bridge. Oh, it tells you, oh, it's faster. Let me just dash across. And in the process, you want cars to slow down for you. And in the process of cars trying to slow down to avoid hitting pedestrians running or dashing across the highway, accidents happen. So the truth of the matter is the orientation of Nigerians has to stop. Why don't we see this nonsense in other countries? It's a mind shift. We have to work on the minds of Nigerians that you cannot continue to do things that are just convenient.
Maybe would like to take a stab at this one quickly.
Apart from what you said about the pedestrian bridges being more accessible, I think there's only one at Fadi where somebody on a wheelchair can actually cross. Many of the other ones don't have a ramp. But beyond that, unfortunately, the most engagement the average citizen has with government is in a punishment kind of mode where people don't feel the real purpose of this is safety. It's safety for the pedestrian, it's safety for drivers who could otherwise hit pedestrians. So it's public safety. But the way government tends to engage us, rather than, I mean, a sane person should be trying to dash across a speeding highway. Let's get that right first. But like you said, if there are deterrents and there's more accessibility and a sense of safety about the bridges, maybe you'd have more use of them. The bottom line is that government can't always be seen to be wielding a big stick. There should be also a sense where you say, a government is trying to protect me, and that's why they're asking me to go across the bridge. That might move more people in the right direction.
Lastly, I just want to drop this in. Maybe the law should also be amended that if you're caught crossing the highway, you have to undertake a psychiatric test, psychiatric evaluation, because you certainly cannot.
Fair point. You're listening to I'm sorry, the psychiatric evaluation just got me laughing. But you're listening to Smooth 98.1. This is Freshly Pressed. We have the analyst in, and we're looking at the news stories making the headlines. Stay with us. The conversation continues shortly. To be fair, why would anyone want to use those bridges though? I wouldn't. They don't look safe.
But the one at Secretariat is, I've used it. It is still Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. We're expecting to read your messages in a short while. If you send them across to 0809-444-0981, just make sure you send them across as reaction to the headlines this morning. Let's go over now to AB Bozimo. AB, the Daily Trust leads with this headline. World Bank asks governments to invest in education. And so, in your usual response, is this a brainer or a no-brainer in the first place?
You know, it should not be that a representative of the World Bank in Nigeria should have to plead with the federal and state governments to put more money into basic education, which in his view would help tackle the menace of out-of-school children in the country. It should not be that there is such a glaring gap in funding that a multilateral body rep would say, you know what, one of the things that you need to do for the next 10 to 20 years is use money more efficiently and transparently in an accountable manner. But this just goes to tell you that it is clear to even outsiders that the priorities of the governing class do not, have not, and shall not, until I'm proven otherwise, include education for a number of reasons. An educated populace is harder to string along with empty promises. An educated populace is more critical in its thinking and assessment of every circumstance and situation. An educated populace may not slavishly come to your compound and bay your name out in obeisance. An educated populace is harder to control with mindless promises and meaningless, jargon. So I think there is a method to the fact that a lot of national and sub-national leaders do not invest money in education. It has the side effect, of course, of having multiple out-of-school children. But I don't think that's a direct cause. The out-of-school children have multiple things. Parents in poverty, parents asking their children to accompany them to trade, to farm, and all that. If there were laws, like they have in many other parts of the world, that our people carry their children to be educated in, where if your child is found missing for a day, you can lose that child. You can be prosecuted. And if there are consequences for a child not being in school, honestly, you will find that you will you will readjust your life to ensure that you don't fall foul of those laws. But here, there are very few consequences. I can leave this show right now. In the next 1 or 2 hours, there could be a store somewhere I can go to, and there'll be a school-age child there helping their mother sell to me. That ought not to be. So the World Bank person is saying what should be obvious. But evidently, things that are as obvious and pedestrian as this fail to actually scrape the bounds of consciousness of many of the consciousless leaders of Nigeria. But they know the value of education. That's why come 4 or 5 months from now, in summer, we'll see the perennial pictures of them standing with their progeny at foreign universities when their children are graduating. So they know the value of education, just not for ordinary Nigerians, unfortunately. The man has said it. Will it ever enter the skulls of those who is actually addressing? Question remains to be answered.
Let's go into WhatsApp. We've got some messages coming through. Tony Chima says, to be honest, I doubt if Nigeria can maintain a food reserve a nation could rely on in these times. Where is the power to run such? This stuff ends on we will, we shall. The next you know, it's the call for re-elections. When you remind them that they did nothing, they'll play the ethnic or religious propaganda card. All right, with these political parties, Nigeria is depending on a promissory check. Peter says those pedestrian bridges are not safe to use any day. Go to Oshodi, Sele bus stop, Alaba. Those bridges are occupied by street kids who steal from users. Deji says buses also stop to pick them up on the highways. Let them clean the drains. Use them like prisoners on community service. Joe says thanks, Mr. C. How possible can we hold our leaders accountable in this country, even if you see them knowing how secure they are? Joseph Menu says, why can't offenses of highway crossing be served as community services rather than fines or imprisonments? The truth be said, most of the pedestrian bridges are unsafe. Example is the one at Charity bus stop, while the one at Oshodi is not lit at all, and a lot of miscreants live on them. So the government should do the needful before any enforcement. Nedu says, please don't be one-sided on the road crossing story. What about areas that obviously need a pedestrian bridge but don't have them? I once dropped off a staff and told her to use the pedestrian bridge, and she told me that there are often miscreants on it harassing people, and she would rather cross the road. All right, next headline comes from Punch onto Power Matters. Discos overbilled 7.1 million customers in 9 months.
Okay, thank you, Zibby. So this is very, very sad. The distribution companies have failed to effectively meter all their customers and have then resulted to estimated billing for those who are metered, and they've been caught out or found out by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, and it discovered that 11 distribution companies overbilled 7.1 million customers to the tune of 105 billion from January to September 2023. Now, this is really astonishing. It's really bothering that the distribution companies could act with such impunity. Now, luckily, what is the recourse these customers have? Now, according to an order that was issued by NEC, the distribution companies have been asked to make credit refunds to the affected customers in the March billing cycle. Now, the March billing cycle will be sometime in April because the bills for March dropped in the second week of April. And they're going to they're expected to return all of that money less the maximum amount they can bill. Now, what NEC had done was for unmetered customers, they had issued an order stating a maximum amount such a customer could be billed by the distribution company until that customer is effectively metered. Now, the differential between that maximum cap and what the distribution companies took is what will be refunded to customers by means of credit tokens in the month of April. Now, a question arises from this. At the time the electricity companies did that, power was a lot cheaper. Now power is more expensive. The credit refunds, will they be done at the rates when the offenses were committed, or will they be done at the effective rate in April? That's a question NERC should answer. But more importantly, the distribution companies are also going to be fined just over 10 billion for the stunts they pulled. Now, this is one of the rare occasions where we find a regulatory agency looking out for customers and ensuring that participants in the market or sector it regulates actually behave themselves. So kudos to Merck on this, and they should continue to keep up with work. This should not be one-off. They should continue to watch these discourse because a number of them are up to funny tricks.
We'll go over now to AB. You want to chime in a bit on that story?
Yes, the shamelessness of this discourse is unbelievable. People are literally paying for darkness. To think that they are billing this much above the regulated amount, it baffles me why I use the word refuse to give people meters. Personally, there is no way I can have a meter, have power, and not pay. What do I mean? Putting that huge cost up front when it's possible to meter me and amortize the cost over 6, 9, 12, or 18 months would be the practical way to make sure, because you see, I'm not going to take the meter and move to another house. I'm not going to take the meter and move to another country. It's connected to one building. So I think there must be a reason. Maybe this was the motivation why they chose not to meter people. And I'm happy that they're getting a consequence. Maybe after this, they will now be the ones begging people to accept meters so that people can pay for what they actually use. I mean, the shamelessness of no light and billing people, it's abhorrent.
Next story. The Nation newspaper, AB, we stick with you. Lagos seeks cooperation for data collection to better project the country's economy. What does this say about our data collection and management system?
This goes back to what I said. They were saying, look, in trying to manage, society, Lagos specifically, they want more people to respond when they send out, queries and questionnaires and the like. A very notable and laudable question. This goes back to what I said earlier. Right now, unfortunately, one of the only ways people tend to experience government is in a punitive way. And so government has a responsibility to start, shall I say, being more relevant on a daily basis to people so that people in their turn can be more inclined to say, you know what, it's in my benefit to respond to these queries because I've seen example 1, example 2, example 3 of government engaging with my challenges and my needs. And possibly when I answer these queries accurately and honestly as I can, I will get better service. As I say, unfortunately, most times, all you hear is we're enforcing this, we're banning this, we're preventing that. It's one function, definitely, of government to create consequences for wrongdoing. But I think this attempt to get more collaboration from both the formal and informal sector will be enhanced if and when government in Lagos State and beyond demonstrate their relevance to ordinary people and not just to the self-serving needs of the governing class. You can sit down and talk about multiple jeeps, bulletproof and otherwise, and you can't talk of grants for the people in educational difficulty. That kind of contrast is what makes people just kind of turn off their mind, thoughts, and sentiments towards time is up. That, I think, will enhance the ability to get more information. Let government relevant to people.
All right, let's look at some of the messages we have coming through, Omas.
Olamide, that's the close message. It says, please, can you ask the Lagos State government when they intend to repair the damaged pedestrian bridge at Alakbere? That was the most used pedestrian bridge in Lagos before the damage. Cisco Delgado, not only sad, it's very pathetic. Discos in Nigeria are terrible. No electricity supply and consumers are being ripped off on estimated billing. Mr. C, let them refund all if possible. Cisco Delgado. Aderemi's message is what we're looking at, and he says, it's easy to criticize when you're in government. The solutions will be less obvious, like advocating for corporal punishment as part of highway laws. That's taking a jab at Mr. C.
Let's see. Tony says, as long as the people in government are legally allowed to take their children and wards out of the country's educational system, there is zero stake for them to invest or fix the shambolic education system. The World Bank's words are like underwater tears, ineffectual. Well, that is it for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your messages. And special thanks to our analysts, Mr. C and AB Bozimo, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Agree, disagree, hit me up at AB Bozimo on all platforms.
Stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth